Hoffman, Monahan parked in front, docks to Caulfield, fires, go! Hoffman, Monahan parked in front, docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0. What is going on, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Habs After Dark. My name is Devin. This is Recliner Sports, and we are here to talk about your Montreal Canadiens. And we are here to talk about another win, another victory for the Canadiens. It's a 4-3 victory, a 3-2 victory, pardon me, over the Dallas Stars. The Canadiens avenge their overtime loss, or their shootout loss, from earlier last week, and now they have defeated the Dallas Stars. And it's pretty fun to watch the Montreal Canadiens right now. The salad is on fire right now, Dylan. The salad is spectacular. It's a Caesar salad combined with a house salad combined with a potato salad. It's coming in nicely. It's silky smooth. It's in a great place right now. We are a wagon. Nous sommes un wagon. C'est correct, Dylan. Nous sommes un wagon. Les Canadiens jouent très bien maintenant. C'est l'équipe qu'on espérait voir cette saison. Ils arrivent finalement à être l'équipe que tout le monde pensait qu'ils pourraient être. The Canadiens are arriving at the place where everybody thought they would be able to arrive to. They've been working on this for 2.5 years now. Again, I don't think they've arrived fully. I still think that there will likely be some steps backwards, but certainly they are in a very good spot right now. They are beating teams that people, not only are they beating these teams, it's clear now that it's no longer a fluke when they beat these teams, right? When they beat Dallas tonight, it's not a situation where, oh, well, the Canadiens just played and Dallas didn't really play their game. They were they were very much in that game. They belonged in the same, in the game with Dallas. And they came out on top with the victory when the final buzzer went. It's not a situation of them being, pulling off a lucky win against a good team. They've now done it against enough teams. They've beaten Florida. They've beaten Tampa. They've beaten Dallas. They've beaten Colorado. They have beaten Las Vegas. They've beaten the Toronto Maple Leafs. They've beaten the Oilers. They've beaten all of these teams. Do I comb my hair before the show? I don't really comb my hair, RDP. I usually use a brush. I do sometimes. I don't know if I really. What does it look like? It's just kind of just like had a shower and kind of waved it all back with my hand and then just throw a ball cap on. What's up, Jordan? How are you? Thovet, bienvenue. C'est Thovet ou Tehovet? On va vous appeler quoi, Tehovet? RDP 3210. Yes, we are ready to go. The salad is silky smooth. In Dallas's barn. Yes, absolutely. Again, winning on the road, a big part of being a mature veteran hockey team. What a game, says RDP. Extra salt and pepper. Yes, you get the extra salt and pepper here on the mustache. Now do you believe? Do you believe the Habs are good, scary good, playoff bound? Let's not get too crazy, but I'm with you. I think the biggest issue here is not so much that the Canadiens now believe. It's now they know, right? It's not they believe they're a good team. It's not they believe that they can win. Now they know they're a good team, right? They know what it feels like to win against good teams. They know what it takes to beat, these top level teams. When they went out in the West, everybody thought this was going to be, now they're going out West. They're going to really get their ass kicked. It's going to be really, really tough. It hasn't happened, right? They now are a hardened team, and they have beaten all of the best teams in the league. Like there's not a top team in the NHL that the Canadiens have not beaten. Taking down the number one team in Washington. Also, yes, Washington. I forgot to mention Washington. The one love-hate I have is Armia in games like this. He played well. He has stints where I'm begging for him to be traded. Then he has games like this where I feel his role is irreplaceable. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think some nights you probably feel the same way about Josh Anderson, and maybe some nights you feel that way about Brendan Gallagher. The reality with those two guys is that they're playing, or those three guys, or four guys if you want to add Dvorak to the mix. Those are guys who are playing really good hockey right now. They're clearly overpaid. You wouldn't want them to be playing the roles that they're playing on any team with the salaries that they have. But for right now, that's okay for Montreal. They can afford those salaries, and they can afford to pay those guys a little bit more than what they're worth. And as long as they're contributing, we're all good. Entertap, what's going on, pal? Another one bites the dust. Yes, sir. Dobesh. Tovet, on va vous appeler Tovet. C'est parfait, Tovet. Alors, c'est Tovet, pas Tehovet. Wendell J. I really would love to see you guys make the playoffs as a Leafs fan. Leafs versus Habs would be great. I agree, Wendell J. I am not one of those Montreal Canadiens fans that hates the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs have a fun and exciting team. I think that there are some issues with Toronto and reasons why they have struggled in the playoffs of late. But certainly, seeing Toronto succeed and seeing Montreal succeed is certainly makes for exciting hockey in May and June for everybody. Too bad CBJ TB won as well. Well, again, Entertap, I think for Montreal right now, it's more about the Canadiens than it is about the other teams right now. Even if they don't make the playoffs, as you and Wendell hope, I mean, obviously I hope that as well. But even at the end of the day, if they don't, it'll be more about how far they develop and how far they move forward with the rebuild and with their team. Great performance. I agree, Billy D. Welcome from Newfoundland, our good friend Billy D. The Habs have been not only out hitting their opponents, but landing some fight-worthy hits. If they were not so clean, I wonder how much this is feeding the beast. I think a lot of different aspects of the Canadiens game is coming around, and Hitting and being physical is a big part of it. I think, being physical in the NHL is a lot harder than people think it is, right? People will always say, oh, this team's soft, they don't hit enough, and that's often the case. But realistically, in the NHL, if you want to hit, it's more than just going out there and trying to be an animal and just hit everything that moves. Things move fast in the NHL. To hit something that moves in the NHL, you've got to be you've got to have some level of skill and talent. And so I think the Canadiens are now, skating well, moving well. They're comfortable out there on the ice, that they're willing and able to take advantage of the hits that are presented to them rather than running around chasing them. So what switched? You were bottom of the league like 2 weeks ago. Nothing switched, Wendell. Nothing switched, right? That's the big misconception about this team is that somehow this is a turnaround or a comeback or whatever. This is what they've been building towards all along. It was only a matter of time before they learned the lessons that their coaches were teaching them. It was only a matter of time before they started to get the message that was being put to them, and it was only a matter of time before they became the team that they were destined to be. It was just this is not a situation where a team has flicked a switch or anything like that. This has been a long time coming, and they've finally arrived. And they're finally applying, both the physical, mental, and sort of, all of those aspects of the game that their coaches have been teaching them. Saturday night, 33 hits. Armia led the herd with 8. Okay, I'll give you that. Again, I'm not a big fan of the hit stat with the NHL. I think that it's very poorly tracked. Some nights it looks really good when it shouldn't, and some nights it looks pretty bad when it shouldn't. So. But again, yeah, I thought the eye test was that the Canadiens were the more physical team tonight, and they did take it to Dallas, and it was a big impact. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. My 2 takeaways for tonight: the goalie interference rule is going to rob a team of the playoffs and might cost the cup. Rule is too inconsistent during the playoffs, making it difficult. Well, I don't know, RDP, that we're gonna solve that one tonight, so I'm going to leave that one alone for now. I don't disagree with you. I just think that it's too big of a topic to try and tackle right now. If you guys are here watching the show, guys, if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. It's really easy to do. The button is just here below my face. You can hit the thumbs up. We've only got 2 thumbs up so far, guys, and there's 15 of you in the room. Let's try to get to 50 tonight. Can we get 50? Is that too big of a challenge? That's normally our goal, to get to 50. And also hit the notification bell. That way you will get notified when the show goes live. This is Habs After Dark. We go live after every Montreal Canadiens game. If you're over there on TikTok, come on over to YouTube. You can join the YouTube channel, and you can join the conversation here if you're so inclined. So, like I said, subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a thumbs up. I see we've got 4 now, so let's work on that, guys. Another good win, says Frank Lorca. Is it Lorca or Yorca? Are we talking Spanish or are we talking French here? Another good win with her number 1 goalie. That's the point, buddy. Okay, well, Dobesh is not the number 1 goalie, but he is playing very well right now. The A-team. We will get to the A-team here shortly. Asim. Lane Hudson requires a lot of coverage from forwards as support. I think this overall helped the team tighten up. Lane Hudson is a very good hockey player, and Lane Hudson understands the game very well. He obviously has a ton of physical skill, but he also has a ton of mental skill, and he understands how the game works, and he understands how to create scoring opportunities. He understands how to use his talents to his advantage. He understands how to use his talents to create time. He knows how to create space, not just for himself, but for his teammates. And he's got incredible vision. Like where you and I kind of see, I don't know what angle this is, we see in front of us, he sees all around, right? And he's got incredible vision, which allows him to be able to make passes to teammates that are in weird positions. And it's just, yeah, he's an incredible talent, and I'm really excited to see him continue to move forward. Dobesh, Caulfield, Armia, Suzuki. I don't know, Asim. You're going to have to stick around and find out. Helped to have Carrier solidify the D squad, and Dobesh with solid goaltending, giving Monty well-deserved time. Yeah, I agree. Carrier was a great pickup. I don't think he had a fantastic game tonight. I don't think it was his best game with the Canadiens I've ever seen. But him coming in, certainly had a big impact on the lineup, in particular allowing Gouli to move over to the right-hand side, to the left-hand side, and play in a more comfortable position. So, yeah, I think the Carrier pickup was great. Bringing Dobesh up turns out to be a great move. I think it was a risky one, but in the end it's turned out and it's worked for the Canadiens. Those two moves have made a big difference. I think also, the return of Patrick Laine has made a big difference as well with this lineup. I somewhat feel like y'all are the 16-17 Leafs, super young team that sneak into the playoffs. Yeah, I think the difference here, Wendell J., is that the Canadiens are not, I don't think, going to abandon their long-term plan just because they make the playoffs. I think, one of the biggest issues with the Leafs is that they felt like because they drafted so well and got, I don't know if they drafted well, but they got some really good players in the draft, that they felt like they were ready to move on to the next level when they really weren't. And it's kind of the reason why, they're a team that's able to make the playoffs, but not able to take things to the next level. I think that's kind of the biggest issue that's going on with Toronto right now, is that they, two problems. I think one, I think they abandoned their rebuild before it was over, if you can even say they were rebuilding in the first place. And two, they're obviously paying way too much money to too few players. They're paying their top four guys over 50% of the cap. And I don't think that that's sustainable in today's NHL. But I think you're right. The Canadiens are a young team. They're an exciting team. They're a young and exciting team that's been built from within, and it's really fun to watch. Fact Frenzy, I think you're new here. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming by, Fact Frenzy. Great game tonight. Was at the game last Saturday. Give me this second here. I got to just move that out of the way. Was at the game last Saturday against Dallas, and it was bittersweet since Maverick Burke is a family friend, and we've been happy for him last game. But tonight, revenge feels good. Yes, I see your point very well. Are you from Hawkesbury, Fact Frenzy? I believe that is Maverick Burke's hometown. It is a town where I have spent some time in my life. And it's a great little spot, great little town directly in the middle between Ottawa and Montreal. Devin also gives great hugs. If you weren't already convinced to like the show and subscribe, well, I don't know that you would know that, Jordan, but it is actually a fact. It is true. I do give great hugs. I don't know that Jordan has experienced that in person. So I'm sorry, Fact Frenzy. I did mean to post your comment here on the screen, but I did not hit the right button. So there we go. Habs are on a heater, says why Vappy or Evappy. Welcome to the show, Evappy. I think you're also new here. Welcome. And thank you very much for coming by. The Habs are definitely on a heater. Let's hope it's more than just a heater. Let's hope that this is who they actually are. I know that it's actually who they are. It's just a matter of whether or not, I believe I'm quite confident that there will be some steps backwards. I don't think that this is a matter of the Canadiens sort of having fully turned the corner and being a team that wins, 7 out of every 10 games going forward. But at the same time, it is definitely an improvement and it is a move in the right direction. So I am excited for it. I'm excited for the game on Saturday as well, Wendell. What are my predictions for Saturday? I think it's going to be a fun and exciting game to watch. I think it's going to be a good game. And unlike the first game, have we played? I think the Leafs and the Canadiens have played 3 games now, right? I can't remember the second game. I know the first game was the 1-0 shutout in the opening game of the season. I think this is going to be a very different game than that. It's not going to be a situation where the Canadiens are coming in, and if they compete with the Leafs, it's going to be a matter of them being sort of the underdog team that competes with the better team. It's going to be, and I think the Canadiens and the Leafs are going into Saturday night's game as equals, and Montreal is playing just as good a hockey as Toronto is, and it should be interesting to see. I mean, I'm not promising any wins or anything like that, but I think it'll be a fun and exciting game to watch. Yes, RDP, welcome. I'm glad to have you. Thank you. Peripheral vision, yes. Vision is a very huge strength for Mr. Hudson. Primo destined to be an AHL goalie with the duo being where they're at. Peut-être trop vite. Il pourrait rester avec Laval. Il pourrait être échangé à notre équipe. Peut-être il va avoir une blessure. Il va revenir aux Canadiens. Il y a beaucoup d'opportunités pour Caden Primo. Moi, je pense que Caden Primo, c'est un bon goaler. Et pour moi, il va avoir encore une chance de jouer dans la LNH. If Dobesh keeps playing this way, he will be number one. Nobody could deny that. Well, everybody could deny that, Frank. Again, you're a big I don't know what the word is. You like to jump on the bandwagon after a very short period of time. Dobesh is not going to become the number one because he plays well. Dobesh is going to become the number one if Montembeault doesn't play well. So for right now, I think that you're going to see both of those guys continue to get a significant amount of playing time. You're going to see them both get an opportunity to play games, and at the end of the day, I think you're going to see them both get opportunities. And yes, Dobesh's playing time will increase as he continues to play better, but he's not going to take over. He's not going to take over the job from Sam Montembeault unless Sam Montembeault falters. So, A-Team, Slav, Dobesh, Armia, Suzuki. You might be in for a surprise, Entertap. Stick around. Wendell, well, we can blame Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan for that. I'm interested in seeing what JT does, and I think Marner's gone. Again, I'm not going to get into it in any great depth. I'm not a big fan of Brendan Shanahan. I think Brendan Shanahan has been a disaster for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't really blame Kyle Dubas. I don't think Kyle Dubas was a problem in Toronto. I think Kyle Dubas was just fine. Brendan Shanahan, on the other time, I think is an issue. Entertap and Jordan are having a little chat there, and RDP. Another awesome game. Bienvenue, Claude Rijal. Yes, it was a great game. It was fun to watch. Go Habs, go. Guys, I'm trying to get through the comments so that I can get to the scoreboard here, but you guys are pounding me here. Maverick Borkus from Plessisville, Quebec. I'm from Trois-Rivières, but now live near Sherbrooke. Okay, who am I confusing him with? Who's the player that's from Hawkesbury? It's not Maverick Bork. It's he played on the World Juniors team last year. Big, tall defenseman. I always confuse Maverick Bork and Maverick Lamoureux. Maverick Lamoureux, c'est un citoyen, c'est un natif de Hawkesbury. Alors, je me suis trompé. Je m'excuse, Fact Frenzy. My father actually played in Trois-Rivières for the junior hockey team there back in the 1960s. They were a Bruins affiliated team back in the day. They were it was before the Quebec Major Junior League, but they were I think they did really well. I think they won the equivalent of the Memorial Cup that year when my father played in Trois-Rivières, Three Rivers, as my dad likes to call it. It's really exciting to watch Montreal do so well. It is really fun to watch. I mean, I think they're always exciting to watch, even when they're not playing well, but it certainly adds a little more satisfaction at the end of the games when they're winning. 1-0 win and 4-1 loss to the Leafs. There you go, Entertap. As long as they are moving in the right direction, sooner or later they need to move from rebuild to contender, and they have the right people in place. Well, here's the problem. I mean, here's what I agree with, and here's what I disagree with in that comment, Asim. So yes, you're right. They do have to move. As long as they're moving in the right direction, everything is fine. But what I think is often misunderstood about the rebuild is the rebuild continues. The rebuild is ongoing. The rebuild doesn't end until they lift the Stanley Cup in front of their fans, or it doesn't end, right? You don't go from rebuild and then to become a contender. You go from rebuild and then you win the cup, and then frankly for me, the rebuild then even continues after you win the cup, because the rebuild is all about philosophies and the way you build your roster, and I think that those philosophies can carry on past winning the Stanley Cup. Right? So just because you win the Stanley Cup, you don't all of a sudden then say, okay, well now we're going to be a team that goes out and just signs free agents and doesn't really worry about the draft, it doesn't really worry about prospects, it doesn't really worry about development, it doesn't worry. To me, the rebuild is an ongoing thing. So I don't believe that there's I don't believe that there is a transformation or a point where you switch from a rebuild to contender, right? The rebuild continues as you become a contender, as you become a playoff team, as you become a Stanley Cup contender, as you become one of the best teams in the league. The rebuild is an ongoing process that doesn't just end because all of a sudden you become a playoff team, and that's been a major issue for a lot of teams in this league who have decided that now we're kind of in the playoff mix. Now we're a team that's in the mix for a wild card spot. Now we don't have to rebuild anymore. We can abandon all of the things that have sort of helped us get to where we're at right now, and we can all of a sudden sort of start looking at signing free agents and bringing in older guys and not really focusing on our young players and players within our own organization anymore. So I think that I don't think there comes a point where you abandon the rebuild. I think the rebuild continues to move forward. I would like to see Newhook and Slafkovsky land somewhere around 15 goals. Hope the second half of the season is kinder to their game. Yeah, I can see that. I think Newhook. I don't know that he'll get to 15 goals or not, but I think that's sort of where he sort of falls. I think that Slafkovsky is just continuing to work on his game. We'll see. Hudson for Calder. I think Calder is in Hudson's, potentially in Hudson's future, even if Celebrini doesn't slow. I mean, he's kind of slowing as it is. Two channels at once. You're good, Entertap, buddy. I'm not sure what that means. Is Entertap double timing me here? Is he two timing me? Mike Condon won in first 5 games. Everybody was excited. He played 50 games with the C. Yes. I don't think that Andre. I don't think that Jakub Dobesh fits in that category. But you're right. We do have to be careful about tempering our expectations and tempering the way we respond to things that happen in a short span of time. Question: 2 blank mannequins, one a center, the other a defenseman. Is it fair to compare point for point? If not, what's the split? 70 point. It's a good question, Jordan. I think I would take the question a step further. It's not even just a matter of being, the difference between a defenseman and a forward. I think it's a matter of being, looking at a player from a point production perspective versus an all-around perspective, right? Like, it's not just about whether or not you're whether or not you're a defenseman or forward. There are some for example, if one of the comparisons that I get from a lot of people, particularly some Ottawa Senators fans, is who's a better player, Nick Suzuki or Tim Stützle, right? So both forwards, but which is the better player? Who would you rather have on your team, Tim Stützle or Nick Suzuki? And for me, the answer is easily Nick Suzuki, because I think that, obviously Tim Stützle has a ton of offensive talent. He's a very skilled offensive hockey player, and he produces points. But Nick Suzuki's not that far behind him. In fact, this year I think they're pretty even as far as point production is concerned. But Nick Suzuki brings so much more to your lineup than Tim Stützle does, right? He's a substantially better defensive player. He's more, he contributes more of a leadership role. And so for me, it's you need to look at the entirety of the player. And I think that a lot of hockey fans nowadays are very, very focused on point production. And sometimes there's a lot more to a hockey player than just point production, right? We look at Cole Caulfield, right? Cole Caulfield was a goal scorer, and that's what everybody was excited about him when he came to the Montreal Canadiens. And he looked pretty good and was working towards being a really good goal scorer. And then last year, his goal scoring took a bit of a dip, right? He kind of stepped backwards a little bit as far as his goal scoring was concerned. Everyone was really worried, like, oh, is Cole Caulfield regressing? Is he really going to become the player we thought he was going to become? Like, he's not scoring goals the same way he was. But he was working on things. He was working to improve his all-around hockey game. And now we're seeing the fruits of that. We're seeing the results of that. He's a much better hockey player now. He's back to scoring goals, but he's also setting up goals. He's also making other players on the ice better. He's skating better. He's creating offense. He's doing all kinds of things better. So, judging a player simply by points is a pitfall that a lot of fans fall into. But again, when you're judging a hockey player, there's a lot more to be judging from than just the number of points they put up on the scoreboard. Do not change anything. It's good. You want a few cups in a row. RDP. Yeah, all of that stuff, guys. I mean, again, for me, like I said, the rebuild is not, it's not, the rebuild doesn't have a beginning and an end, for me. Like, for me, the rebuild is the incorporation of, different philosophies. Like this organization, the Montreal Canadiens organization, for many years has been very reactionary. They're all about sort of, responding to what's going on. The Canadiens have lost 5 or 6 games in a row. We have to do something. We need to trade somebody. We need to, bring somebody up from the minors. We need to send somebody down. We need to fire a coach. They're always trying to fix something. But the reality is that, sometimes you just need to make a plan and stick to it, regardless of whether or not it succeeds right away or whether or not you go through some hard times. And, sometimes you just need to be willing to live with your plan and to ride it out to the point where, it works out. If you're confident in your plan and you bring the right people in to put it into play or to make it happen, then I think that's a lot better than, teams that sort of jump all over the place. And that's what you see with teams like Toronto, even Detroit, who's out, Detroit's doing well right now. But it's like you see these teams who, they make a plan, but then when things change a little bit, they change their plan, right? So last year, Detroit kind of thought, oh, man, we have a chance to make the playoffs here. We got to go and sign Tarasenko, and we got to go out and sign Patrick Kane, and we got, no, stick to your plan. So for me, if the Canadiens are, 2 or 3 points of a playoff spot when the trade deadline comes along, I don't think and I don't want to see Kent Hughes go out there and say, okay, we got to add that one guy that's going to get us into the playoffs, and we're going to trade a couple of our prospects and maybe a couple draft picks to bring in a guy who can get us into the playoffs this year. Well, for what? For what? Like, to get us into the playoffs so we can lose in the first round and all of a sudden we've given up, 2 first-round draft picks and a prospect because we wanted to play 3 or 4 playoff games or 4 or 5 playoff games? It's just not. It's not sustainable, and it's not the way it works. And I'm pretty confident that Kent Hughes sees it the same way. That he's willing to to stick to the plan that he and Gorton and Jeff Molson and the entire organization has made. So, congratulations to Yoel Armia on his 100th goal. Absolutely, I have to admit, good goaltending helps you win games and motivate all the players. It helps you keep your head in the game, I think is what you're saying. Love the way Hudson plays. Okay, there's a lot there, Frank. I do agree with that. I think that goaltending, does help you win. It does motivate the players. And I also agree that Hudson is fun and exciting to watch. Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate the compliment. RDP, 3-0 Avs. Now it's 3-3. Okay, I thought I had the game here, but it's the channel has gone black here on me, so I'm not really watching that anymore. Evans, Armia, Savard, Anderson, 1-4, likely to be traded. My opinion on that. Wow, okay, I see. I'll do that real quick because I do have to get to the scoreboard, guys. Actually, I'll come back to that, Asim. I'm going to go to the scoreboard first. We're going to go to the scoreboard here, guys. So, again, we have a 3-2 victory for the Montreal Canadiens over the Dallas Stars. A pretty good game. I think the Canadiens came out really, really strong in the first period. I haven't really gotten to my takeaways from the game, but we will talk about it. The Canadiens were the much better team in the first period. Even though the score ended up 1-1 after 1. Jason Robertson scored the first goal of the game. It was at the 3:50 mark. It was actually a bad turnover, a bad pass by Mike Matheson in the neutral zone. He made a bit of a soft pass across the ice, fully across the ice. It was intercepted by Wyatt Johnston. He enters the zone. He goes in and gets a scoring opportunity, but he shoots the puck wide. Jason Robertson kind of recovers the puck. Dadonov ends up with the puck. He comes into the center of the ice from along the boards, takes a shot. Dobesh makes the save, but unfortunately the rebound is left sitting there, and nobody is able to recover it. And Jason Robertson puts the rebound in the net. It's Robertson, his 12th on the year, from Dadonov and Johnston at the 3:50 mark. The Canadiens come back right away. About a minute later, Uri Slavkovsky scores his 5th of the year, assisted by Caulfield and Suzuki. Nick Suzuki gets the puck sort of just inside of his own zone. He feeds Cole Caulfield, who is just flying at top speed through the neutral zone. Because he has that speed, Caulfield is able to beat 2 Dallas defenders. He goes all the way in on the goal. He beats Ottinger, but ends up kind of behind the net, a little bit behind the goal line, and then passes the puck behind Ottinger into the crease, where Uri Slavkovsky is trailing the play. Johnny on the spot puts the puck into the empty goal, and it's tied 1-1 after 1. The shots on goal after the first period are 11-7 for Montreal. The high danger scoring chances are 5-4. And and the expected goals are pretty even. Oh, actually, the Canadiens kind of dominated the expected goals, 1.5 to 0.8. I thought the high danger scoring chances probably were more in favor of the Canadiens that period, but that's the way Natural Stat Trick saw it. Second period, no scoring, right? Dallas kind of took it to Montreal a little bit. I thought Montreal kind of stopped skating, in the second period. Dallas kind of took it to the Canadiens. They outshot them 15-9, outchanced them 8-5, and basically a complete reversal in the expected goals, 1.5 to 0.9 in the opposite direction in the second period. The third period, the Canadiens again. I thought the third period was pretty even between the two teams. The Canadiens might have carried the play a little bit. They weathered the storm. Dallas weathered the storm in the first period. The Canadiens weathered the storm in the second period, and it was kind of a matter who was going to come out and take control of the game in the third. The Canadiens managed to do that. Alex Newhook scores his 8th at the 9:15 mark. Newhook wins the faceoff. It goes back to Lane Hutson. Newhook leaves the faceoff circle, goes right to the front of the net. Lane Hutson, fires one of those shots he likes to fire. He's not trying to score a goal, but he's trying to provide the best opportunity for a deflection, and he gets it this time from Alex Newhook. Newhook's in the high slot. He deflects the puck past Ottinger. Ottinger has no chance, and the score is at that point 2-1 for Montreal. Did the fit? Am I missing something here? Was the final score? What's going on here? The final score was 3-1, not 3-2. I keep seeing 3-2, but it's 3-1. So my brain, it's late, guys. I apologize. So it's a 3-1 final for the Canadiens, not a 3-2 final. Why do I keep saying 3-2? In any event. So the Newhook goal makes it 2-1 for the Montreal Canadiens, and then the Canadiens kind of hold their own for the rest of the game. Dallas is putting some pressure on them. They pull the goalie with about 4 minutes left in the game. There's some pressure, but as that pressure is going on late in the game, Josh Anderson, Yoel Armia intercepts a pass in the defensive zone. He chips the puck off the boards, beats the defender, and he's able to go in all alone and scores an empty net goal to make the score 3-1 to end the game. I apologize, the scoreboard has the wrong final score on there. The Canadiens outshoot Dallas 11-5 in the third period, even though for whatever reason, Natural Stat Trick seems to think that it was 4-1 in high danger scoring chances in favor of Dallas. I'm going to dispute that total, and the expected goals numbers were pretty even, but again in favor of Montreal in that third period. The final's 3-1, even though the scoreboard says 3-2. I'm going to get it off the screen because it embarrasses me that I got it wrong. So that's all she wrote, guys. Canadiens win 3-1. I want to get maybe the takeaway I had from tonight, guys, was, and I summed it up. Again, we've been focused a lot on winning habits, right? We've been talking about winning habits after games of late, and tonight's winning habit is speed kills, right? And I wrote that down in my notes after the first period or during the first period, because the Canadiens' speed in that first period was absolutely dominant. Like Dallas did not have an answer for the Montreal Canadiens' speed in that first period. The Cole Caulfield goal, right? He is flying through the neutral zone. And Nick Suzuki hits him with a pass at full speed, and he, because of his speed, he is able to beat the Dallas defense, with relative ease. It's amazing speed. Speed improves your defense. Alex Newhook in that first period, like winning board battles, not because he's bigger and stronger, but because he's on top of the opponent before they can do anything. Like he's on top of them as soon as they get the puck, lifting their stick, taking the puck away from them. Like he's in and out like a burglar in the night. Like he's in there before they even know what's going on and takes the puck and is gone. The forecheck, they're skating and they're using their speed. Again, speed means nothing if you're not skating and moving your feet, right? And we kind of saw that in the second period, right? The Canadiens didn't become any slower in the second period. They just weren't skating. Speed causes turnovers, whether it's on the forecheck, whether it's on board battles. When you're skating and when you're fast, you're taking time and space away from your opponent. You're also creating time and space for yourself and for your teammates, but you're taking it away from the other team. They don't have any time. They get the puck. They have no time to think. And it forces them to cough up the puck, to make bad passes, to just, sort of dump the puck in or chip the puck away. They don't have the time to make a play if you're really skating and moving fast. So that's kind of my main takeaway tonight. I'm going to spend a lot of time on it. We got a lot of questions in the chat, so I'd rather get in there. But speed kills, strength kills. I wrote down as well. Arbor Jackeye. Like, is there anybody in the NHL who kind of who sends people flying, who sends opposing players flying with such limited effort as Arbor Jackeye does? Like, how many times do we see a guy try to hit Arbor Jackeye only to go like flying backwards, or a guy who Arbor Jackeye just kind of pushes him with his arms a little bit and the guy goes like head over heels? The kid is so strong. The kid is enormously strong. And I think that strength is a huge factor too. For a guy like that, winning board battles and being able to separate opponents from pucks and things like that. So tonight, speed kills, strength kills. Speed only kills if you're moving your feet. I guess strength only kills if you're moving your feet too. But those are my two takeaways from tonight. But let's get back to the comments here. So Asim asked, let's do this, Asim. Let's get this question up on the board here. Evans, Armia, Savard, Anderson. Who am I trading and why? Again, I would put. Evans is probably at the bottom of the list. Evans is probably the least likely guy of those four that I would want to trade. Savard is probably the most likely. It's not even that I would want to trade him. I just think that he's the most tradable. I think he'll have value as a right-handed defenseman with Stanley Cup experience. Anderson and Armia Armia is probably, Anderson is probably, Armia is probably next in line, and then Anderson. Armia obviously is coming up to the end of his contract, whereas Anderson has a couple years left and has a bigger contract to try and get rid of. I'm not disappointed with any of those players, and I wouldn't be upset if any of them remained on the team. But again, if you're asking me for the order, I would probably go Savard, Armia, Anderson, Evans, and it's not so much who I want to see traded; it's more so who I think could be traded or would expect to be traded. That's the order. So I hope that makes sense. If you have 10, 20 goal scorers, that is a winning team. Absolutely. I think you probably want to have a couple guys who are scoring a little bit more than that, Andre, but 10, 20 goal scorers is something you would probably be happy to have on your team. You should make some recliners hats and give them away. It would help you boost your channel. Yeah, I think that's probably something that we hope to get to down the road, Frank. I'm starting to believe that Armia might stay. Yeah, he might stay in the short term, but again, I don't think he's in the long-term plans for this team. And I think that at some point, Armia is going to end up standing in the way of some of the younger players who are going to be coming up from Laval. And so, if he does stay, I think it'll probably be for, a short term. I said Demidov. Demidov played today. Did anybody watch the game? Hands up if you watched the game, guys. Put your hands up if you watched the game between Ska and Severstal today. I'll talk about it here in a minute. Scoreboard better than what they pay those dweebs at TSN. Don't you disrespect Dobesh like this. Am I disrespecting Dobesh? What did I say? What did I say? Habs now have the best record in the league over the past month, 11-2-1. Top, yeah. Again, it's not. It's as they were saying at the end of the RDS broadcast tonight. It's not a matter anymore that Again, I said it the other night too. I said it before RDS said it, but this shouldn't be a surprise anymore, right? This is a good hockey team. It shouldn't surprise you that they're playing this well, because this is what they're capable of, and this is the kind of team that they are now. It's not a surprise anymore. It shouldn't be a surprise, right? If you're surprised by the way the Montreal Canadiens are playing, then you're not paying attention. Hit the subscribe button, guys. Hit the notification bell. Thumbs up, guys. We've only got 10. There's 14 of you. The numbers are down a little bit in the room at 14. But if you're in here and you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, give us a thumbs up. Jack Guy is the last guy hitting through people, and it's so refreshing. Yeah, I agree with that, Jordan. The thing with Jack Guy is more important to me than him. It's not the big hits with Jack Guy. It's not the big hits with Jack Guy that impress me. It's the less noticeable hits. It's the ones where he just separates other players from the puck. It's where he gets between the opposing player and the puck, and he creates turnovers that way. Yeah, I mean he's going to throw big hits from here, from time to time, but that's not going to be the strength of his game, right? He's a big, strong, physical guy who, when he gets in one-on-one with players on the boards, he's going to win those battles, and those are the battles that I'm more impressed with than sort of like the big, bone jarring hits that he's inevitably going to end up throwing. Yes, Jack Guy is a beast at her tap. He's not even a physical specimen. No paint cans for hands, just an anger that goes unmatched. Yeah. I just think that Jack Guy is just an abnormally strong human being. Again, I haven't seen him with his shirt off. I don't know. I don't know that he's big and jacked or anything like that. But he just has a strength that he's a big dude, but his strength is even bigger. And like he just, again, there are times where guys just bounce off of him or go flying. When he's not even really putting in a ton of effort, it doesn't look like to throw a big hit. Armia and Anderson will be the only ones here. Dvorak is gone as well. Again, I don't know that we could possibly know that, Andre. I think you're probably right. Actually, I don't think that you're right. I don't think that Armia is going to stick around. I don't think that Armia is going to stay on the long term. I think Anderson and Gallagher are more likely to stick around, mainly because their contracts are longer. Toronto's a good example. Come playoff time, a guy like Jack Guy is a line killer. Yeah, I think the Canadiens have a few guys that are playoff style players. I mean, you'll never know for sure until they actually get a chance to play in the playoffs. But I mean, we did see it. We did see a little bit of Jake Evans in the playoffs. We know what he's capable of in the playoffs. Arbor Jack Guy looks like he's the kind of guy who can play in the playoffs. Caden Gooley looks like he's the kind of guy who can play in the playoffs. I mean, it'll be a matter of time to see. But Evans is gone. Okay. Again, I don't think that there's any way for you to possibly know that, Andre. I don't expect that he'll be gone. I think he'll probably stay. I don't know for how long, but again, I don't know for sure, and neither do you. So, when we start speaking in absolutes about stuff like that, again, I think we kind of demonstrate that, we don't really know what we're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. I can't tell you with any absolute certainty that Jake Evans is staying or going. So I don't like to do those types of things. You might think that he's gone. You might hope that he's gone, but you don't know that he's gone, right? None of us does. 7 games of going into the corners with Arbor, as Marner said in the very first intermission against the Habs. I don't expect them to hit that much. Yeah, well, again, I wouldn't want to be on the ice with Arbor Jack Guy for a significant amount of time either. Hands up. You got your hands up. You did watch the Ivan Demidov game. So we got 2 of you who watched the Ivan Demidov game. You want to do something real quick here? Let's do this. Let's do... I think I can do this. You want to watch Ivan Demidov's goal from earlier today? Is that the right clip? That is not the right clip. Is this the right clip? This is the right clip. So here's Ivan Demidov's goal. We can watch his assist as well later if you like. Well, let's watch it now. Why not watch it now? Is this it? That's not it. What's going on here now? That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. So here's an assist he had later. So he ended up the game. He ended up with a goal and all season. He played, I think it was 22 minutes, something along those lines. That's the wrong screen. You guys are getting a preview. There we go. Yeah, he played more minutes than he has all year. He now has 35 points. So Michkov last year had 41 points in the KHL. In 49 games, I believe. So Demidov has I think 5 or 6 games to try and surpass the pace of Michkov. He almost certainly will break the record for most points by a 19-year-old in the KHL, Kirill Kaprizov, with 42, I believe. And so, yeah, I think there's still 15 or 20 games left in the season. So I don't think there's any doubt that he'll break that record. Now, all of those guys did it in 47 or 48 games. So if he wants to stay on their pace, I think he needs to break it sooner. But he's playing spectacularly. He's just playing really, really well. I got you, Jordan. I got you. I see that. Arbor has a mysterious I almost said Bufflin strength. Bufflin strength. Yes, he does. He does. I would trade someone to Washington for Cole Hudson. Yeah, it's not a bad. I mean, I thought. I mean, again, it's funny because I brought this up with Coach Frenchy the other day, and I think he's probably maybe changed his tune a little bit. But his impression was that it might not be the best idea to have 2 players like Cole and Lane Hudson on the same team who are very similar. But again, I don't think I would have any issue having those 2 guys together. Unfortunately, the Canadiens did not have a draft pick in that range last year when they would have had the opportunity to draft Cole Hudson. But, yeah, he's a pretty special player too. Tovat, I would hate to see us get rid of a first when we have plenty of contracts we can get rid of. Absolutely, I agree. Armia 2.5 for 2 years. Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, Andre. I just think that the Canadiens will see him eventually as being in the way of some of the younger players. Good camera view. What did I do? Did I get too close to the screen? Did I get too close to the screen? Or are you talking about the camera view on the Demidov goals? I'm not sure. I watched the NHL Network, and they are talking about Evans. Many are interested. The Canadiens need to sign him soon, otherwise he's gone. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I don't think he has any interest in leaving, Andre, which I think is probably the part you're missing and maybe the part that the NHL Network is missing. He wants to stay in Montreal, right? He's excited about this rebuild. He's excited about this team. He's excited about what this team is capable of and what they might achieve. And so, in that respect, I think that, it's more likely that he stays. Also, the Canadiens want him to stay. So again, I think there are teams that are interested in him, but I think that at the end of the day, Evans' preference will be to stay in Montreal. I think he will be willing to give Montreal a bit of a discount. How much that discount is, I don't know. Whether that discount will make a difference, I'm not sure. But again, I think that your conclusion that he's gone, I think is again, I'm not going to say it's wrong because he may very well be gone, but I don't think that there's any way that we could possibly know that either way. What's going on there, TikTok? If you're over there watching on TikTok, come over here to YouTube. You go to the Recliner Sports 4 on YouTube, join the show, get in the comments, and enjoy the chat. Get into the conversation. Frank, I would wear your Recliners hat, and you have great content. Enjoy joining the conversation. Good job. Thank you very much, Frank. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the thumbs up. If you guys have not sent a thumbs up yet, give us one. There's only 11. There's 13 people watching right now, and there's only 11 thumbs up. If you're enjoying the show, give us a thumbs up. Also, if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button down below. I see most of the people who are in here right now are regulars, so I suspect you're all already subscribed. But if you're watching this in a replay later on, then you can also subscribe. That would be awesome. Demidov will come within 1 point, and then Rottenberg will sit him. Yeah, I just think that there's too many games left to enter tap. I get that you're probably joking there, but I think that there's just probably too many games left in the season. And I think that Rottenberg might be coming to the realization that if he wants to save Ska's season and he wants to save his job, then playing Ivan Demidov more ice time rather than less is probably the best avenue to achieving that. I think he today was a good example of that with him playing. Him giving Demidov over 22 minutes of ice time. It would be within 0.5. There we go. I gotcha. Mario Armia is one of our most promising rookie talents. Yes, how can he be in the way of younger players? Just kidding. But I think we will have to trade him before he gets replaced. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Armia. Again, I just think that there is a bunch of young players down in Laval. And also, even coming up behind that, who are going to be wanting a spot, whether it's guys like Beck and Roy and Tuck and Jackeye and guys like that. And then, behind him, you're going to have, guys like Hage. You're going to have guys like Thorpe. There's going to be a lot of guys coming up through the system who are going to want that spot. And you're not going to want to, capping in. You're not going to want, a veteran player to be in their way. I mean, obviously, Armia is great in the short term. He's played fantastically. There's no denying that. But do you want him there when it's time for those other guys, those younger players, to make their move up to the NHL? What do we got here? Evans would be another Deneau situation, but Evans doesn't have Bergevin taking him anywhere. Yeah, I think that there's a bit of a difference between Evans and Deneau. I mean, Deneau, I think, is probably a higher level all-around hockey player than Evans. I mean, are they the same in the sense that Evans could go somewhere and make you regret letting him go? Absolutely. But again, Deneau, I believe, was a first or second round draft pick, and Evans is a seventh round draft pick. Evans is playing probably the best hockey he'll ever play, certainly from a production point of view. And Evans' strength is as a fourth liner. I've said that before. If you're taking Evans to be on your team and you think that he's going to play further up the lineup, then I think you're doing yourself a disservice, right? Evans is good because he's playing on the fourth line. He exceeds expectations as a fourth liner. As a third liner, he's kind of what you expect from a third liner, 8, 10 goals, solid defense, PK, all of that stuff. That's what you expect from a third liner on a really good hockey team. So Evans' value is as a fourth liner. Right, so if you're going to pay him the kind of money that you're not comfortable paying a fourth liner, then maybe he's not the right guy for the job. But if you're going to pay him an amount that you're comfortable with him being a guy who plays on the fourth line, who kills penalties, gets on a really good year gets 10 or 12 goals, then yeah, Jake Evans is awesome. Deneau really thought being a French Canadian would let him fleece the Canadiens, if you ask me. I don't know about that. I'm not going to get into all that, Jordan. I do think he wanted too much. I don't know how much of the, being a Francophone Quebecer played into that, but I also want him to stay. Andre, I agree with you. He fit that role that Deneau did. Well, Deneau is a different hockey player. Deneau's upside, production-wise and offensively, was and is significantly higher than Jake Evans. I mean, it's not, obviously on the defensive side of the game and the penalty killing and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of similarities there. But Deneau is, the upside of Deneau is a much, he's a much better, there's a much higher upside for Philippe Deneau. Tuck played well last night. He did. I think did he get 2 points last night? I think he got 2 assists, Andre. The logjam is coming. The question is, what do you do with the old logs? Sell early for higher value, and hovering on the edge of the playoffs really magnifies the impact of slutting in rookies for vets. Yes, the logjam is coming, and what you do with the old logs is, I mean, I don't think you re-sign them. Really, I mean, when you're talking, I mean, right now the guys who are coming up are Armia and Dvorak, right? So when they come to their end of their contracts, you don't re-sign them. If you think that the logjam is coming, you let those guys go. You trade them, or you don't re-sign them. If you think that logjam might be a year away, well, maybe you sign them to 1-year contracts and you do that. But at the end of the day, you need to be prepared for guys like Beck and Jack-Eye and Tuck. And Jack-Eye and Tuck are probably not ready to come up just yet. But Beck and Roy and Kapanen and guys like that. So you have to make room for those guys. So if Dvorak and I believe Dvorak and Armia's contracts are coming up, those are guys that you look at moving now. And obviously guys like Gallagher and Anderson still have a couple years left. Maybe they stick around a little bit longer, and they're the ones who provide you with that veteran. They're the veteran anchors that kind of give you that leadership. While the younger guys continue to come up. Yes, Jake is a good face-off guy. I agree. Dvorak, no contract, but with Armia, do you let him walk? I think you could get some value for somebody like Armia. Yeah, I'm not suggesting you let him walk. I'm just suggesting that, I don't think you go out of your way to re-sign him. I mean, if you get a decent trade offer for him, I think you make it. And if you do think that there's another year to go before some of those guys down in Laval are ready to make the jump up to the NHL, then maybe you sign a guy like Armia for another year. I mean, you're in a really good position when it comes to being the Montreal Canadiens, because you can do that, right? You're not you're not backed into the corner where you have to sign Armia, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. You can do whatever is most beneficial to the organization. All right, how about we get to the A team, guys? You want to do that? The much anticipated A team. What are your thoughts on the A team? So I'm going to give you the A team here, guys. Then you can tell me whether you agree with my A team, whether you think I've got it right, I get it wrong. Are there guys on there that you don't think deserve to be there? Are there guys on there that are there guys that I missed? Are there guys that should be there that aren't there? So there it is. So there it is, guys. Cole Caulfield, Uri Slafkovsky, Arbor Jack-Eye, and Jakub Dobesh. So those are your 4 members of your A team for tonight's game, as selected by me, Devin, Mr. Recliner Sports, whatever you want to call me. Just call me Devin. But anyways, so that's what we've got. Cole Caulfield, I thought, again, another really good game. I thought that whole first line played well. Caulfield, Slafkovsky, and Suzuki. Certainly Suzuki, deserved a spot on the A team as well, but you can't have everybody on the A team. Caulfield with the goal, or the setup, the goal to Slafkovsky at the beginning of the game. Arbor Jack-Eye just had a great game. 65% expected goals. One of the best on the team, was definitely even higher until the very end of the game. Just another solid game by Jack-Eye, and he's just developed into being a guy you can rely on the back end, right? Like he's a perfect third line or third pairing defenseman. Exactly what you want in a third pairing defenseman. A guy you can throw out there. You can count on him. He's not going to be spectacular, but he's not going to make any mistakes. And he played that. That's the game he played tonight. Slafkovsky, I thought, played well. He was physical. He was moving his feet, especially in the first period. Got the benefit of that goal. I thought he had a great game as well. His expected goals percentage, 61%. So again, pretty good number for a forward against one of the better teams in the NHL. I thought he looked really, really good. And Jakub Dobesh. Again, very similar to Montembeault, Sam Montembeault on Tuesday night. Didn't make a ton of saves, didn't stand on his head by any means, but at the same time, he made the saves that needed to be made when they needed to be made, right? That's what you want from your goaltender, right? To me, a perfect goaltender in the NHL is a guy who goes out there night in and night out and makes the saves that need to be made. And then once in a while, he'll give you a performance, that sort of saves the team on a night where they're not playing really well, right? So, once every 7 or 8 or 9, 10 games, your goalie will go out there and, the team isn't really firing on all cylinders, and the goalie will be the difference in a game and, maybe give you a chance to win a game you don't deserve to win. But again, on most nights, a good goalie is doing what Dobesh did tonight, right? He's making the saves when you need them. He's keeping you in the game in the second period when, your team is, sort of, not being dominated, but certainly not being the better team, right? Like Dallas is a good team. You're not going to go into Dallas and play 60 minutes where you've got your foot on their throat the entire game. There's going to come a point in a game against a team like Dallas where, where they push you, where they get scoring opportunities. It's going to happen. And so, with a goalie, what you want from your goalie, whether it's Dobesh or whether it's Montemo, and they're both doing this right now, is you want that guy to be there when things start, falling a little bit in favor of the other team. You want, him to be there to make a few saves for you so that you can stay in the game and you can then take advantage of your opportunities like the Canadiens did tonight, and get a goal like they did in the third period to give them that 2-1 lead, and and then you can win games that way. So to me, Dobesh again, I don't think he was spectacular by any means. I don't think he made a ton of saves. It's not one of those games where you make 40 saves or anything like that. But again, he was solid, made the saves he needed to make, and he gave the Canadiens an opportunity to win. You don't disagree with these picks. Some are more obvious than others. Let's hear the Jack Eye take. Again, Jack Eye just was great. I thought he was steady, solid. Again, Jack Eye's not going to wow you. Jack Eye's not going to, Jack Eye's not going to go end to end. He's not going to score spectacular goals. He's not, but he's going to be out there and he's going to shut down the other team. He's going to win boards on the battle. Battles on the board, and he's going to be physical and he's going to be strong and he's going to use his strength and he's going to use his natural attributes to be a really good defenseman. I thought he was really, really good tonight. I know, Intertap, you were way off tonight. Normally, you're either 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4. Newhook also played well tonight. I agree. Newhook's played a few good games in a row. Caulfield has been a life raft for the top line this whole season. Slav has been really working like a dog lately. Dobesh has been suspiciously good. Forget the replacement completely. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think Caulfield has been very, very steady. He's been a consistent performer from the Canadiens from day one. I think he's been one of the team's better players. He and Suzuki have been, I think, the anchor on this team. That you can always, even when everybody else wasn't really firing on all cylinders, those two guys were kind of steady eddies and doing their job every night, and they kind of kept the team in games even early in the year when they didn't belong there. So yeah, I'm with you. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. Have a good night. I thank you for coming, and I hope you have a good rest of your night. We'll see you next time. Arbor is always one of my heart's favorite players. I think he's in the running for most improved Hab this year. And if he can keep the trajectory, I'm excited to see the 28-30 Arbor Jack. That's something I've always said, Jordan. One of the things I've always said about Arbor Jack that impresses me and makes me excited for him is, the trajectory. Right? He's a guy who's like his improvement has been like that. Right, like he's a kid who barely made junior hockey. Right, he barely made it in the OHL. Got a second chance to make it in the OHL and took advantage of it. Became a high-level player in the Ontario Hockey League. Obviously he relied and used his physicality and his strength and his fighting to get there. But he didn't fall back on that exclusively. Like he became a better hockey player. Didn't get drafted in the NHL. Showed up at Canadiens camp and made the team, as a 19-year-old, 19 or 20-year-old, whatever it was. He made the team. Like, here's an undrafted kid who wasn't even drafted into junior hockey. All of a sudden, he took advantage of the opportunity. The Canadiens were in a rebuild and there were spots open that normally wouldn't be open, but he took advantage of it. And he's gotten better and better and better and better at every stage of his career, right? He just continues to get better. And if he continues to get better, at the same pace that he has already, he's going to become a very good defenseman in the NHL, a very good defenseman. Last year, he went down to Laval, right? We're sending you down to Laval. He didn't mope about it. He didn't whine. He didn't complain. He went down there. He put his head down. He worked hard. He accepted the lessons that they wanted him to learn, and he learned them. And he became a better hockey player. This year, right? He struggled to learn the new defensive zone systems. He struggled with that. He struggled with the reads and how to make the decision about when you leave your post and you go and join your teammate along the boards. When you stay with your guy. He struggled with learning how to do those reads. Right? He's not a kid who grew up playing hockey. He's not a kid who put on a pair of skates when he was 2 years old and skated on a pond in Saskatchewan. Right? He's from an immigrant family who lived in the city, and hockey doesn't come as naturally to him, but he learned it. He learned it, right? He sat up in the press box with an assistant coach and figured out, the systems and learned how to make the proper reads. And he took those lessons and he accepted that, he had to sit out a few games, and he didn't mope and cry and bitch and whine about it. He learned the lessons, right? And everybody was all worked up, Marty St. Louis hates Arbor Jackeye and he's being too hard on him, and he's talking shit about him in the press conference, and George Larac, is talking. Marty St. Louis doesn't like Arbor Jackeye, and Arbor Jackeye is going to get traded, and all of this bullshit. Like, no, they were teaching him a lesson. They were teaching him how to be a better hockey player. Right? He was learning. And so, it's why you need to be really, really careful when you start criticizing players, because, you perceive some level of diminishment or diminution in their performance on the ice. Like Logan Mayhew's an example, right? Everyone thinks that Logan Mailloux is regressing and struggling in Laval, and maybe he is. I don't know. I don't know any better than you guys do. But what if Logan Mailloux is working on something? What if Logan Mailloux is trying to improve his defense? What if Logan Mailloux is working on specific things on his game that will make him a better hockey player in the long run, and he's going to turn around and sort of be like Cole Caulfield was this year, right? Cole Caulfield, everyone thought he was regressing last year, but here he is this year, and he's putting it all together because he learned new lessons last year. So all of that to say that I'm a big Arbor Jackeye guy, and I think you make a good point, Jordan, because I think if Arbor Jackeye does continue to learn and develop at the rate that he has so far in his, 3 years since he was a junior hockey player, I think we're looking at a pretty special player. Dobish is my number one. Everything else is good. Okay, well, again, Larry, I don't think Dobish is number one. He can be number one in your heart, but I don't think, again, as I said earlier in the show, Dobish is not going to become the number one because he plays really good. The only way Dobish will become the number one is if Sam Montembeault falters, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. A goal that makes a save at key moments is gold. Yes, we did not see much of Suzuki tonight. I thought Suzuki played well. I thought that whole line played well, but again, I just I can't give a spot on the A team to everybody. So can't disagree with my selection, says Entertap. Just thought Armia had probably one of the best games of the year, and Suzuki with +2 and ability to defend went under the radar. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't disagree with that. I mean, I thought Armia played really, really well, but again, it's really nice when you're making the A team and you've got, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys that you can choose from to put on there. Whereas, there were times at the beginning of the year where you were struggling to get 2 guys that you could legitimately say belonged on the A team. So, Suzuki would have looked very fine on there. Armia would have looked fine on there. I wouldn't have had any problem with either one of those. It's just I don't know who I would take off to replace them with, Great takes on Arbor. I follow his journey closely, and you're right. The special skill of Arbor is his potential, an enforcer with potential. What a scary combination, heart of a team player. And that's part of it too, right? He hasn't put all of his eggs in that basket as an enforcer, right? And I think he's learning how to be an enforcer in 2024, 2025, right? He's not... you can't be an enforcer the way, they were in the NHL 20 years ago. You can't just go around the ice looking to beat the shit out of people. You can't just go around the ice looking to throw big hits. It just doesn't work in today's NHL. So again, I think Arbor is a guy who, is intimidating opponents by his reputation and by what they know he's capable of. And it's not just his fighting. It's his strength. It's like I said earlier, right? How many guys have you seen that just bounce off Arbor Jackeye, right? They look like they're running into a brick wall. Like tonight there was a play, I don't even remember who it was, where there was a guy and, he was kind of standing in front of the puck and Jackeye just gave him like a two-hand shove. And it looked like the guy was hit by a tractor trailer, right? Like he went flying. And so, that to me is the benefit of Arbor Jackeye. Arbor Jackeye doesn't need to fight 10, 15, 20, 25 times a year. Maybe he has to fight 5 or 6 times a year. Fighting is, I'm not going to say fighting's dead in the NHL, but it's not, it's not as big of a part of the game as it once was. And I think that's, Jackeye will be able to be a better hockey player because he goes beyond that. He's not just a fighter. There's a lot more to his game. And it's not just the fighting. It's not the big hits. It's, he is capable of being a very good defenseman in the NHL. People were talking shit about Jackeye on the Hockey Nation chat. Jackeye is the kind of guy that a lot of people don't understand, right? He's very easy to not understand. If you're a casual observer, if you're a casual, fan, if you watch the game, sort of on a superficial level, then, Jackeye might be a guy that you don't really pick up on because he doesn't do those special things, right? He's not out there. He doesn't have a shot like Patrick Laine. He doesn't skate like Alex Newhook or Cole Caulfield. He doesn't have the moves and the vision of a Lane Hudson. He doesn't play in a way, he doesn't play in a way that Caden Gooley does. He's just a guy who, is steady behind, he's a steady guy. He stops guys from getting scoring opportunities. As simple as that sounds, it's an easy thing to miss, but he's a very good hockey player. They're doing the same thing with Mailloux. They're asking to work. Yeah, they're asking him to work on his defensive game. I think that's the case, Andre. Obviously, I don't know exactly what's going on there, and I think from the outside, it does look like he's struggling a little bit. But I think there may be a little bit more to it. One, because there often is more to it, and two, because there doesn't seem to be any panic within the organization about the fact that he's not producing at the same level that he did before. Like to me, I look for those kind of cues, right? Like, if they thought, oh my God, Logan Mailloux is regressing right now, there'd be some talk about it. Like we'd hear about it, but we're not. There's a lot of people, Jordan, who didn't really have a lot of love for, and again, he's one of those guys that other teams fans like to pick on because he got a lot of notoriety early on in his career. And, they don't watch the Canadiens on a regular basis. And they don't see what he's become and how valuable he is. Maybe he was working on specific things. Yes, Andre. Too often you see prospects given to other teams the fix. I'm happy St. Louis has the guts to experiment with his players. It really adds weight to when he moves them around, not just giving up. I've never witnessed in real time a coach grow so much as St. Louis. We've seen him change and grow a lot as a coach, but he showed his colors as a player. First coach, great development. Yeah, I've obviously I've been on the St. Louis bandwagon for a long time. I took a lot of heat over on TikTok when I used to do these shows on TikTok from people when I used to say things like Marty St. Louis is one of the best coaches in the NHL. And the reason I think he is because he doesn't adhere to the old school traditional way of coaching. Like he doesn't think, hockey is a bit of a dinosaur sport, right? There are still a lot of coaches in the NHL, and historically, it was believed that the only way you can get to a player is by punishing him, right? I've put clips on my TikTok, I believe. I don't know where else I would have put it up. This year, clips of Pierre Maguire on with Tony Marinaro, where he talks about, the only way you can really get to a star player is by taking their ice time away. And taking their ice time away to the point where, it's going to affect their contract negotiations. And, even like saying things like, you want to get to, if you want to punish a player, you take away their, what did he call it? Their cookie time or something like that. And, getting them to the point where, you want the media to start questioning them, and you want their family to start questioning them about why they're not getting more ice time and so on. And it's so foreign to me. It makes no sense. Like, why would you want to, treat your players on your NHL hockey team in such a way that it causes their family to question them and to get on their back or get on their case? It's such an old school approach. And so Marty St. Louis has been such a breath of fresh air from that, where his approach is to coach and to teach and to develop and not to punish. Like, he's not a John Tortorella, right? If you screw up, he's not going to pin you to the end of the bench and leave you sitting there to watch the rest of the game. He's going to put you back out there because he wants you to learn a lesson, right? Like, the best way to learn a lesson is to go back out there and don't make the mistake again, right? And obviously things change as time goes on, and if you make the same mistake 5, 6, 7, 8 times, then the repercussions have to increase from there. He's not going to be a pushover, but the philosophies of coaching are just so advanced and progressive when it comes to Marty St. Louis compared to the majority of coaches in the league, that he has there's no choice but for him to succeed, right? And you see it. The players love him, but they don't see him as a pushover. Like, they don't take advantage of him. Like, it's you don't. Obviously there's a risk if you want to be a player's coach of having the players take advantage of you, but he's doing it in such a way that he's created an environment where they what did he talk about recently, right? The players are starting to coach themselves, right? He's created an environment where he doesn't have to go in the room and scream and yell at them, right? He knows that they're responsible enough, and they're sort of accountable to one another enough that they can solve a lot of their own problems. Like, we talked about the first period in the Utah game. I frankly didn't think they played that badly in the first period of the Utah game, but he talked about not having to go in the room and scream and yell and tell them to pull up their socks, because he knew that they would. Like, he knew that they would be accountable to themselves, right? Cole Caulfield taking that really bad penalty against Vancouver, I think it was, late in the game, right? Could have been a really costly penalty. And, I talked about it here on the show, right? Marty St. Louis didn't have to yell at him about that, right? Didn't want to yell at him because he wants Cole Caulfield to have a little bit of that, sandpaper in his game. But he also knew that he didn't have to yell at him because he knew that Cole Caulfield would be accountable to his teammates, right? He knew that Cole Caulfield would feel badly, not because he took a bad penalty, but because he let his teammates down, right? And so they've created a culture and an environment. St. Louis has created a culture and an environment where that's kind of the way things go with this team. And so it's not a matter of having to be a John Tortorella where, you bench guys or you put guys in the press box and then you stand in front of your local media and talk about how this guy's an idiot or this guy's that, or, you don't need to do that when you're a coach like Marty St. Louis. I saw him play in Kitchener. He was unbelievable in the playoffs. Albert had a great run that year. I believe he got named the MVP. I don't know who you're talking about, Andre. Oh, you're talking about Jack-Eye. Yes. And just to add to St. Louis, he's a player worthy of respect, not just given his small, also an emotional player, really understands the ebbs and flows of the players. Yes, again, he talks about it all the time, right? He's been in the role of most of the players on the Montreal Canadiens, right? Typically, Hall of Fame hockey players don't make good coaches, right? Wayne Gretzky, probably the worst coach of all time in the history of hockey, history of the NHL anyway. And the reason is that, those guys have a really hard time coaching and teaching because a lot of what they were able to do came naturally to them, right? They had natural skill, they had natural talent. And it's hard for Wayne. Like, how was Wayne Gretzky going to teach? How was Wayne Gretzky going to teach Michael Pezzetta how to do the things that he does? It can't happen. It just doesn't make sense. But that's not where Marty St. Louis came from, right? Marty St. Louis was an undrafted player. Everyone said he was too small. He sat on the bench. He didn't make it right away. He worked his way into it, and so I think he can relate to those players a little bit more as well. He's not on the power play. They want him to work on other aspect of his game. Yes, you're talking about Meilleure, I believe. 3 out of 4 points against top cup contender in the West. Awesome. Yes. What do you mean 3 out of 4 points, Armando? They got 4 out of 4 points. I don't know that Utah would be considered a top contender. I'm not sure what games you're talking about, Armando, but again, Montreal went out west. They beat Utah. They beat Dallas, and they got 4 out of 4 points, and now they head home and they play Toronto on Saturday night. If you are not subscribed yet, guys, please do so. Armando, I know you're new here. Welcome. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, which is on the screen here just below me. Hit the notification bell and give us a thumbs up. I don't know why, guys, but we're not really doing much on the thumbs up tonight. We've only got 13. We had like 25 people watching earlier, and we still only have 13 thumbs up. We only have 13 likes. We had like 60 the other night. Can we get that number up? I mean, I'm not begging for it, but I think we can do better than that. Only way to get a player to get to players by punishing him. Great take. Again, you can. Again, I'm not sure where it is, Jordan. I think it might be on TikTok. It might be on Blue Sky. I can't remember where I posted it, but it was on. Pierre Maguire would have been on with on the Tony Marino Sick podcast, and it would have been sometime, I want to say, in October. You can go look it up. Listen to the whole interview. Again, it's just Pierre Maguire just demonstrating how much of a dinosaur he is, and the old school approach to coaching, which I don't believe really works. I believe it depends on the players. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't depend on the players, Andre. And I think you're partially right. And here's what I'll say about that. It depends on the players whether or not they can handle the hard-ass coach. You're right. I agree with that. Some players can handle it, and some players can't. Some players will respond to the hard-ass coach. Some players will respond to a John Tortorella, and some won't. But that doesn't mean they like it. That doesn't mean that they like it, right? So just because a player does well under a John Tortorella doesn't mean that they like it. And it doesn't mean that they won't do better under a coach who's more supportive and treats them more like a human being, right? So you can be a guy who succeeds and prospers under a guy like John Tortorella because you have a thick enough skin to handle his insults and the way he treats you and the way he gives you a hard time when you make mistakes or play badly. But it doesn't mean that you enjoy it, and it doesn't mean that he's getting the best out of you, right? It doesn't mean that he's getting the best out of you. It means that he's getting enough out of you, but it doesn't mean that he's getting the best out of you. And I think at the end of the day, I think that the coaches who treat their players with respect and treat their players with a desire to improve them and make them better will always succeed at a higher level than the players who try and to teach and coach by punishment, right? By taking ice time away, by benching them, by putting them in the press box, by sending them to the minors, all of these kinds of things, right? I think at the end of the day, every player will do better under that kind of coaching. Putting Gallagher out after his penalty was a good move to show respect. He knows he fucked up. Yeah, absolutely. How's Wayne Gretzky going to teach Pizzetta? Like, again, he can't relate to him. I mean, there's not very many players in the NHL who can relate to Wayne Gretzky, right? Wayne Gretzky has natural talents that 99.9% of the people who have ever put on a pair of hockey skates will never even understand, let alone, be able to put into practice. Again, it's not to suggest that Wayne Gretzky didn't have to work hard to get where he got. He absolutely did. But, it's hard for a guy like that to coach. I met both games against Dallas on Saturday. I got you. All right, Armando. Yep, you're right. 3 out of 4 points against Dallas between Saturday night and tonight. Again, the Canadiens have just been doing that over and over again, right? Florida, Tampa Bay, Las Vegas, Colorado, Washington, Dallas. Like it's like they're not what they've knocked off all. I think was it 6 of the last 7 Stanley Cup winners, and the only team left is St. Louis, which is probably the least of them. So A2 me, what's going on, pal? A2, welcome. Have to think if the Habs continue like this, Marty St. Louis will get some consideration for Coach of the Year. Yeah, maybe. Again, I think it'll depend on the result. I mean, if the Canadiens are able to sneak their way into the playoffs, I think he'll get some consideration. I think that a lot of people around the NHL have a great misunderstanding about what's happening in Montreal. I think that a lot of them, if you listen to some of the national podcasts like Frank Saravelli or Elliot Friedman and Kyle Bukauskas, if you listen to some of the people in the guys who purport to be national reporters, they don't really get what's happening in Montreal, right? Everyone keeps it drives me crazy. Everyone keeps talking about how it's a big turnaround in Montreal. Montreal has finally figured it. No, they haven't figured it out. It's not a turnaround. It's a development, right? It's not like they were here and they turned it around and went over there. It's a development. They're building, right? It's a rebuild, right? You're rebuilding. You're building a house, right? So initially the house doesn't look like much. It's just like a foundation, and then it's a frame, and then it's got walls, and then it's got a roof, and then it's got doors and windows, and then it's got it's a rebuild, right? It's like I said the other night. If you're surprised at the way the Montreal Canadiens are playing right now, you haven't been paying attention, right? This is something that if you've been paying attention and you've been watching and you've been paying attention to what Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon and the players and the coaches have been talking about, this is something that you knew was going to happen eventually. Did you think it was going to happen this soon? Did you think it was going to happen this suddenly? Maybe that could be a bit of a surprise, but it shouldn't surprise you that the Montreal Canadiens have been playing well, right? This is what they've been building on. This is what they've been working towards, right? I gave the analogy of the speech. Those of you who were here and heard me go on that rant, right? When you learn how to deliver a speech, right? First you have to memorize it. You memorize the words, and you can stand up and you can say the words, but you sound like a bit of a moron, right? You don't sound that good, and even though you've memorized the words, you probably still will get it wrong once out of every 3 or 4 times. Then you start working on like the inflection, like how to put the emotion into the speech. Like when do you raise your voice and when do you lower your voice? And so you've memorized the words. Now you've put some emotion into it, but still you don't really have it down pat. Every once in a while you still screw up the words, and you don't always get your emotion right. Sometimes you raise your voice when you shouldn't, and whatever. And then you start working on the body language, right? Your hand motions and your gestures and whatever like that. And now the speech is starting to come along. It sounds pretty good. And, 9 times out of 10, you can get the words right. And, 7 times out of 10, you can get the body language right. And, the 7 out of 10 times you get like the inflection and the emotion and, when to, hit hard and whatever. And, and then it's getting better, but you're not great, it's still whatever. But then all of a sudden, boom, like something hits, right? Now all of a sudden you can deliver that speech. And you can deliver a banging speech time after time after time. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to give it perfectly every time. There's still going to be a step backwards. Every once in a while, you're going to, kind of zone out and you're going to, screw up the words, or you're going to pound the table at the wrong time, or you're going to punch your fist or whatever. You're going to get it wrong. But eventually, you're going to get to the point where you can deliver that speech pretty damn well most of the time. You're going to get consistent about delivering a really good speech. And that's what's happening with Montreal. Right? They started out as a team that was trying to memorize the words. Right? And they looked terrible. Like they would go in and, they'd play well once in a while, but most of the time they looked bad. And then they started working on so that's the analogy what I build as to what's going on with this team right now. It's not a turnaround. Right? It's not a team that's, all of a sudden gotten good. They were good all along. The speech doesn't change. It's the same speech from day one. It's just you get better at delivering the speech, right? You get better at speaking and telling the speech and giving the speech to other people. The speech is the same. It doesn't change, right? So the Canadiens haven't changed. It's the same guys. Obviously, they've added Cartier, who's made a difference. They've added, Laine's come back in the lineup. Dobesh has made a difference. But, for the most part, it's the same guys. It's the same speech. They're doing the same thing. They're just better at it, right? They've improved at it. They've gotten better. So this isn't a team that all of a sudden got good, that they were shitty before and now they're good. They've always been good. But sometimes it takes a while to get, to the point where, you can, deliver on all of that. So that's kind of where I get frustrated, especially listening to some of the national broadcasters or the national, podcasters or those people. It's not, this is a good team, right? Cole Caulfield was always good, but he had to work on his game to get where he is right now, right? Kirby Dach was always good, but yeah, he struggled. He struggled. He's coming back from an injury. He struggled. Now he's able. He looks like he's better. Lane Hudson was always good. He was always a good hockey player, but he had to prove that he could do it at the NHL level as a young, undersized defenseman, and now he's doing it. So, anyways, it's a bit of a rant, but again, that's my take on where the Canadiens are and why they're at the place that they're at right now. It's like, yeah, you have to use tough love. You have a plan in place, and you have to, you teach them lessons, and they're not going to get the lessons the first time you teach them, right? If I handed you a saxophone right now and said play that saxophone, you're going to sound like crap, right? You're going to sound like somebody's strangling a goose. But if I give you a year and lessons on how to play that saxophone, you're going to sound okay after a year. And then if we do that again for another year, you're going to sound pretty good. And then if we do that for a third year, you're going to be, if you put the effort and the time and the commitment to it, you're probably going to be a pretty damn good saxophone player. But you can't expect, people to just be like good overnight. Doesn't happen that way. Doesn't happen that way. And so to be surprised that this group of players, this group of talent, is playing well, you're not paying attention if you're surprised by that. I'm not surprised by it because I've been watching these guys from day one. I watched Lane Hudson play at Boston University last year. Right? I've watched, Cole Caulfield and what, the things that he was working on. I'm not worried about Juraj Slafkovsky and the fact that, he's not putting up points the way, because I know that he's going to be okay. I wasn't worried earlier in the season when Kirby Dach was struggling because I know what he's capable of and I know what they're teaching him and I know, what's coming down the line. So I'll say the only way to correct spoiled players is a hard coach. I don't know about that. I don't know what you mean by spoiled players, Jordan, but I like that you say about Keefe. He's trying to tell three guys who make $10 million as much as he does, 10 times as much as he does. Yeah. Again, I don't know. I just think that it's not about that. It's not about teach. It's not about like making them learn. It's like you bring the right people in and you put the right people in place to coach them and develop them. You're going to be successful, especially if you're willing to put in the time that it takes to do that. How many players were great coaches in the NHL? I don't know, Andre. Let's think about it. Let's see if you can think of any of them. So which one of the coaches currently in the NHL were quote-unquote great players? I mean, Marty St. Louis is probably as good as any of them. So who gets the call-up? Doubt Habs will go with Pizzetta much longer. My guess, Davidson or Roy. I don't agree with you, A2. I think they might go with Pizzetta. I do think that they might call up somebody like Davidson or Kandata to fill that role. Pizzetta's fine. He could be better. I don't agree with everybody jumping on his back over that penalty tonight. I think that they're also conscious of not mixing things up in Laval more than they have to. Now, when they're playing at home, that's not as much of an issue. They can bring a player up and send him right back down, and he might not miss a game in Laval. So you might see something there to give a player an opportunity to come up. Could be an Owen Beck even, but we'll see. Full crime JJ. He'll win Stanley Cup. Shore Atlantic Division. I don't know what you mean, JJ. Sorry. I'm sorry you're speaking gibberish and I don't really understand it. But welcome. Thank you for coming by. I believe Davidson will be the recall. Yeah, he could be. He could be. Again, I think he deserves it. But again, I think the Canadiens are conscious of not messing around with too much going on in Laval. And in a perfect world, Pizzetta creates the least amount of waves at the NHL and the AHL level. Lemaire was a good coach. Yeah, Lemaire was a decent coach. Again, I think that Lemaire was old school. But again, Lemaire was old school when it was old school. But again, I'm extraordinarily happy that the Montreal, and one of the things that makes me happiest about the rebuild is that they've abandoned a lot of the old school dinosaur approaches to coaching, to management, to all of that stuff. Right? They're not like they were before. They don't make knee-jerk reactions to bad situations. If the team loses 4, 5, 6, 7 games in a row, they're not making knee-jerk reactions to try and fix it. They're not out there trying to trade guys or send guys down or fire coaches or whatever. Like, there's been so many, coaching changes and personnel changes in this organization over the years based on a knee-jerk reaction to a short-term failure, right? Like, PK Subban getting traded, right? A knee-jerk reaction. Like, all of the, coaching changes, all the Vigneault and, Terrien and Julien, these guys being fired and rehired and hired and refired and recycled and brought back in and all this kind of stuff. It's just like, let's make a plan and let's commit to that plan and let's stick to that plan for a long term. And they're finally doing that. And, they're not reacting negatively to, 3 or 4 losses here and there. They're not reacting negatively to a guy who's struggling. They're not doing all that stuff. So, all right, Jordan, thank you, man. Jordan's got to hit the hay. I appreciate your comments. They're helpful, they're productive, and they definitely contribute in a great way to the conversation. Pizzetta played 4 minutes tonight. Marty St. Louis has seen enough. Yeah, again, I don't think it's a matter of Marty St. Louis seeing enough. I think that he understands that Pizzetta is in a tough spot, that he hasn't played for over 2 months, and that he's in a difficult place, and that he's not in a good spot to be able to contribute to the team. And if they need him, like if another guy were to get injured, he would use him, but he's only going to use him as far as he needs to. I don't know that. I agree with your take that Marty St. Louis has seen enough. I don't think it's a matter of him being frustrated with Pizzetta or whatever. I just think that he wants to use Pizzetta as minimally as he possibly can, because I don't think he feels like Pizzetta is in a good spot right now to help the team. Larry Robinson was a good coach. Yeah, Larry Robinson was a great player. I would argue that Larry Robinson is maybe the most underrated defenseman in the history of the NHL. I would put him in the top 5 defensemen of all time, maybe top 3. Right? Who are your top 5 defensemen of all time? I have, as far as all around defensemen, I don't know that it gets any better than Larry Robinson. All right, guys, let's get to our final graphic of the night. We're going to get to our report card. The report card, of course, is my way of judging this team without looking at the wins and losses. Of course, they are winning a lot more than they're losing right now, so the report card kind of goes out the window in certain respects. But again, this is a way of looking at looking a little bit deeper at the team and the way that they've played, and judging their performance without just sort of simply relying on the score. If you're not following us yet, give us a follow, subscribe by hitting the button down below. If you are inclined and enjoy the content, then you can also hit the thumbs up button. We're only at 15, guys. There's 11 people watching right now. The numbers are going down. We are getting late in the night. It's 1:35 here for me, so I'm doing my best to keep my eyes open for you guys and not fall asleep. It's been a long day, but we will definitely get there. So tonight, the Canadiens obviously allowed 3 or fewer goals. They only allowed the 1 goal against. They were able to score that 3rd goal with the empty netter by Yoel Armia. So again, they get check marks on both of those both of those categories, I guess we'll call it. Again, 3 goals a game being sort of a standard. If you allow 3 goals or more, 3 goals or fewer, and you score more than 3 goals a game, you're probably going to be in a playoff spot. Are you taking off, Andre? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good night. Doug Harvey was a special defenseman as well. Special teams, I'm going to give them a failing grade tonight. They were 0 for 3 on the power play, although they did manage to keep Dallas off the board on 4 power plays. But again, I'm going to give them a bit of a failure there. But again, they're playing one of the better teams in the league, with a pretty good penalty kill. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But again, discipline tonight. Again, I struggle with the refereeing in the NHL, as you guys know. I think there's a lot of penalties in the NHL that are very difficult to take. For example, Michael Pezzetta taking that penalty in the first period. A lot of people jumped on his back, including the announcers on RDS. Pierre Houde kind of was all over him, and I respect the hell out of Pierre Houde, but I think a lot of times either his eyes aren't very good or he's not really paying attention to the game, right? Obviously that penalty was a bad penalty to take for Pezzetta, but if you actually look at the penalty, it's really hard to criticize him for that. The puck is offside, so what is Stankhoven even doing in the offensive zone? He knows it's offside. He can't touch the puck because he's going to be offside if he does touch it. And he kind of runs over, he skates over to Pezzetta, bumps into him, and then goes down as if he's been shot by a sniper, in the upper stands of the Dallas arena. It's a complete dive. It's a complete waste of a play. And the referee is just not smart enough to recognize that. The referee just doesn't recognize that that's just such an uneventful, unimpactful play on the game, and that Logan Stankhoven is taking a complete dive, and the referee looks over and sees Michael Pezzetta, who obviously has a reputation as being a bit of a tougher player, an instigator type player. And a guy who doesn't get a lot of ice time, doesn't get a lot of respect, and doesn't get a lot of, people don't, see him as they see him in a certain way, and they call a penalty on him. And yes, it was the timing of it all, and the penalty was bad. But, I have a really hard time blaming Michael Pezzetta for that penalty. So, anyways, I gave the team an X for discipline. Anyway, I thought that the new hook penalty wasn't that great. He probably didn't need to ride his hands up into the face of his opponent while he was finishing his check. So, I'll give them a failing grade on discipline. One, because I'm kind of tired of giving them straight check marks across the board. I thought they played a full 60 minutes tonight. Obviously, they didn't dominate the game the entire way. They were dominant in the first period. I thought that they struggled a little bit in the second period, but I think that was more about Dallas playing well than about them playing poorly. Effort, engagement, and energy. I thought it's just becoming the norm now, where they come out and play with energy. It's not, we expect that now. So, I think it's not a matter of us, it's weird because I get frustrated again with the RDS announcers, because it's almost like they're waiting for the team to fail again, and they're waiting for them to struggle. To me, it's like, this is what I expect from them now. They are going to struggle. They are going to have bad games, and they're not going to play great hockey every game between now and the end of the year. It's just not going to happen. But I'm not looking for it, and now I expect them to play well. Everyone says, "Oh, Dallas is one of the better teams in the league." Well, we've gotten to the point now where the Canadiens can compete with the better teams in the league, right? It's not a matter of us, it's not a matter of the Canadiens going out there and playing a team like Dallas and having to, get some luck or have Dallas maybe not bring their best game or whatever in order to beat them. The Canadiens can beat teams like Dallas, Florida, Tampa, Colorado, Las Vegas, best on best. Now, those teams probably have a little bit more consistency than the Canadiens do. They're a little bit more mature, and they bring their game and their best game on a more regular and consistent basis. But the Canadiens, it's the norm now that they can compete with those teams. Yeah, the 60-minute, not sure, Andre, perhaps. But I don't think that second period was a case of the Canadiens playing poorly. I do think it sort of looked that way, perhaps because they played so well in the first period. But again, Dallas is going to bring it to you at some point in a game, right? You're not going to, like I said earlier in the show, you're not going to put your foot on Dallas's throat and hold it there for the full 60 minutes. There's going to come a time in the game where they're going to turn the tide on you and they're going to bring it. They're a good hockey team, right? So you need to be, we talked about before, weathering the storm, right? You need to be prepared for a team like Dallas to show up and give it to you at some point. And how do you respond to that? What's up, Cosmo? What's up, Cosmo? The shots tonight were, if you're asking, let's go and have a look over here. The shots tonight were 26-25, I believe. Did I get that right? I didn't get that right. I have that completely wrong. The shots were 33-24. So my scoreboard is wrong. So I've got the scoreboard completely wrong. I didn't do the math to add it up. The shots tonight were 33-24 in favor of Dallas. So that is what we're talking about, guys. That is, we're getting close to the end of the show. We've only got 15 thumbs up, guys. There's 13 of you watching right now. I appreciate you coming by, Cosmo. I think you're new to the show. I haven't seen you here before. I do appreciate you coming by. Thanks for contributing to the chat. If you are here watching, whether it's live or in a replay, give us a thumbs up. Again, we usually try to get to 50. The numbers are really low tonight on the thumbs up, on the likes. I don't know. Maybe I'm not doing a good job tonight. I don't know. Maybe the show is a little more boring than even normal. If you're not subscribed yet, YouTube says that only 40% of the people who watch the show are actually subscribers. So like I said, if you're watching live, hit that subscribe button. It's right down here somewhere, I think. Hit the notification bell, hit the thumbs up. If you're watching in a replay, I know that not everybody can show up after the game. It's almost 2 o'clock in the morning here where I am. It's a late night, and not everybody can do that. I certainly appreciate it, especially on a weeknight. But if you are watching in a replay and you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It's just like I said, it's right down here. If you subscribe, you'll help us grow our community. We're trying to build a community where people can come and talk about the Montreal Canadiens and hockey in general. We do have a Substack channel, guys. If you haven't checked out our Substack channel yet, it's a really, we're not getting a lot of content, or sorry, we're not getting a lot of engagement over there. I know you guys are sort of hesitant to join a new platform, but it's a really great spot to chat about the game. For instance, today, we started a thread about the Demidov game. So we provided a place for anybody who wanted to talk about, Demidov and that game, to follow along. I was providing updates on the game throughout, and also to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions and talk about Demidov over there. And we also did a game day thread for, obviously, tonight's game with Dallas. There's a game thread for every single game. So if you have questions or comments about any of the games as the game's going on, before the game, after the game, you have the opportunity to go to Substack and to post your comments and engage in some conversation over there. Entertap, I don't think you've been over on our Substack yet, Entertap. But again, it's just a way to keep the conversation going. Obviously we do our shows, and we get a great opportunity to come by here and have a chat about the games here. But sometimes you guys might have questions between the games, and social media, like Twitter. I hate Twitter. You're not going to find me on Twitter anymore. I'm on Blue Sky, so you can check me out there. But you're limited in what you can talk about on Blue Sky, right? You're limited in your amount of characters in your question. You're limited by the fact that you're going to deal with people that are just looking to troll. The Substack is a place just for us, right? You can go over there, you subscribe, and it's just our crowd is going to be over there. So I really hope you guys help us get that off the ground. It's a good opportunity to keep the conversation going, and it's a good opportunity to keep our community growing. So go check out the Substack. Go check out the Blue Sky. If you're not subscribed here, please subscribe. Like I said, whether you're watching live or on a replay, it's all good. If you are watching on a replay, I do appreciate it. I know I don't get to obviously talk directly to you guys, but I know that we're getting we're getting usually about 200 or so viewers on the live show, and then we're getting, depending on the show, we're getting any number of people who are watching later on. So that would be awesome. Again, sorry, Entertap, I'm just noticing your question here where you talk about discipline was questionable. Again, I think you and I agree on that. I thought the refs are questionable in the NHL, and it's really hard for me to judge. It's really hard for me to judge discipline on the Montreal Canadiens because there are so few penalties nowadays where you can say to the guy that was a real lack of discipline, right? Like the Cole Caulfield penalty the other night on Tyler Myers. That was a lack of discipline. It was a soft penalty, and Tyler Myers was a complete wuss about it, but it was a lack of discipline on Cole Caulfield's part. That's lack of discipline. Alex Newhook tonight, rubbing out his guy after the play and sort of running his arms up into his face, to a lesser degree, that's also a lack of discipline. But I have a really hard time blaming or associating lack of discipline with Michael Pezzetta for that penalty he took in the first period, or the one he took in the Utah game, where Jack McBain basically pitchforked him in the nuts and jammed his stick between his legs. And when Pezzetta fell down, McBain's stick happened to be between his legs, and the referee called Pezzetta for holding the stick. Like I have a really hard time accusing Michael Pezzetta of lacking discipline on those two calls, right? Like I don't see what he could have done differently. It's not a scenario like Caulfield, where Caulfield said, "I'm pissed off. I'm going to go slash the stick out of Tyler Myers' hands." Right? It's not like he made a conscious decision. Like purely incidental. Like there's nothing he could have done. There's nothing he could have done otherwise. So, anyways, I do struggle a lot of time with the discipline issue because I do ask myself the question after every game: have the Canadiens been disciplined tonight? And to be honest with you, there have been very few games this year where I feel like they've been indisciplined or undisciplined. I don't know which one's the right word. One of them is. So, I just think that the refereeing in the NHL is so bad right now. The rules are bad, and the refereeing is bad. Like, the rules are bad. Like, again, I posted on Blue Sky tonight, right? There was a play where, I can't remember what Canadiens player it was, but Esa Lundell has his stick fully like this across the Canadiens player's body, right? And we've been told time and time and time again by the NHL that if your stick comes across the opponent's body horizontally, that's an automatic hooking penalty, right? You can have one hand on your stick, you can have two hands on your stick, you can have, whatever. If your stick is horizontal across your opponent's body, that's an automatic penalty, which is fine. I got no problem with that. I do have a problem with that, actually, because, if you're calling that, you're going to call 100 penalties a game. But the problem with it is that they don't call it all the time. And they're selective in when they call it. And, you can't, if it's an automatic penalty, it's an automatic penalty. You can't decide to call it against one team and then not call it against another, right? It's an automatic penalty in the NHL right now if your stick causes another player to fall. So I can be skating down the ice with my stick on the ice, and I'm skating down the ice, and I'm looking straight ahead, and some guy can come at me from the side and step on my stick and fall down. They're going to call me for tripping on that, right? I'm responsible for my stick. And again, the problem with that is you're going to get way too many penalty calls. And the problem with that is that they're not calling it often enough. So these automatic penalties are giving the referees too much discretion. They're giving the referees too much discretion to call the game in a way that allows them to try what they think they're doing is managing the game, right? So they're using these automatic calls, which can be, which are available to be called so regularly that they can be called so often that they're using those calls now to manage the game. So they're calling those calls based on the score and what's going on the ice, right? Like, so the famous, what was his name? The referee that got kicked out of the league there a few years ago, right? I have to call a penalty against this team because I've already called too many penalties against the other team, right? So they're using these discretionary calls that happen so often in the game to do all that. Anyways, we're 2 hours into the show and I'm talking about that bullshit. I apologize. We don't need to get into that right now. We're nearing the end of the show. Larry, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying my one of my best friends. One of my best friends. I'll call him. Maybe my best friend is actually in Tucson tonight. He and his wife are driving across North America on their way to Seattle, Washington. And tonight they were in Tucson. He says it's beautiful. He's a big biker, and he brought his bike with him, and he went on a really long bike ride and said that the scenery and the bike facilities, the bike paths, and so on and so forth in Tucson, Arizona are really, really nice. So anyways, I thought I would let you know. So that's it for tonight, guys. Again, if you are watching live or on a replay, please subscribe. If you haven't given us a thumbs up yet, please do so. 15 is, I don't know, maybe you didn't like me tonight. I didn't do a great job. But that's fine. I'll do better next time. We will be live on Saturday night. Habs Toronto Maple Leafs should be a really good game. I think that the Canadiens are probably playing the Toronto Maple Leafs on an even level for the first time in quite some time, right? They're going into Toronto with the confidence that they have every bit of ability to match up with the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's not, obviously they've competed with Toronto. Rarely do you see a blowout in a Toronto-Montreal game. Montreal has won plenty of games against Toronto. But I think for the first time in a long time, they're going into Toronto as a team that knows that they can match up with that team, no problem, right? They're not going in there hoping that they play awesome and Toronto, struggles a little bit and they can pull off a win. They're going in there knowing that if they play their game, Toronto's in trouble, right? If Montreal goes in and plays the game that they've been playing for the last month, and Toronto plays their best game, Toronto is still going to have a hard time beating Montreal. Montreal is, going in there knowing, we've talked about it before. It's not the Canadiens don't believe they're a good team now. They know they're a good team, right? They know they're a good team, and knowing that you're a good team really helps when you go into playing teams like Toronto. And they know right now that they're a handful for a team like Toronto. They know that they're a handful for a team like Dallas. They know they're a handful for any team in the NHL. It doesn't matter how good that team is, right? They stood toe-to-toe with every team, every good team in the NHL, and they've held their own. That doesn't mean that they're going to win every game, but it means that they're capable of winning every game. And if they play their game and they play the way they're capable. So, it's not about the other team anymore, right? It's not about who we're playing against. Right? Remember, like the last few years, you'd look at the schedule and you'd say, okay, we can win that one, but we're probably going to lose that one, and then we're going to lose that one. And if we play really well, we might be able to win that one. Well, now it's like, no. They're the ones who are looking at us and saying, well, can we beat Montreal? Right? And again, I'm not saying that this is going to last forever. I think there are going to be some steps backwards. But they are a good team now, and they can beat anybody in the league. And I think it's going to be a really exciting, fun game to watch on Saturday. So thank you, Andre. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Entertap. Thank you, everybody else who's in here. Again, I'm not going to go backwards through all of the comments to name everybody that was in the live show tonight. I do appreciate all of you for coming. It's fun. I love it. I do this because I enjoy it. I'm not up at 2:00 in the morning talking to you guys because it's a job or because it's a chore. I do enjoy it. So like I said, if you're not subscribed yet, please do so. Help us grow our community. I really would like to get us to 500 subscribers. We can do some of the fun stuff that YouTube allows us to do. I mean, if you guys are, I know you guys, some of you are regulars on Coaches, Habs Nation Lives, he can do some fun stuff, donations, different, subscriber levels, different things like that. So, I want to get to that point where we can do that kind of stuff. I can do, more for you guys. But at the end of the day, the real goal here is to build a community for everybody, for you guys, for me, where we can talk about the Montreal Canadiens, where we can talk intelligently about the Montreal Canadiens in an environment where we don't have to worry about trolls and we don't have to worry about, people that are just going to, tell us how shitty the Canadiens are and how awesome, the Senators are or the Maple Leafs are or the Canucks are or the Oilers are. There's room for everybody here. You don't have to be a Canadiens fan to be here. But really what we're looking for is a place where you can talk intelligently about, the Montreal Canadiens. And we're not just all about, the Canadiens are awesome and the Maple Leafs suck, or, my team's awesome and your team sucks, or my player's the best and your player. We're talking objectively, civilly, intelligently about hockey. And I really want to build a place for you guys to be able to do that. And for me to do it. I want to be. I'm selfish too. I'm not doing this because, I'm not building it just for you guys. I'm building it for me too. So all of that to say, I really appreciate everybody. Montreal Canadiens 3, Dallas Stars 1. The Canadiens continue to roll in the right direction. They play on Saturday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. We will be live with Habs After Dark. We'll be on the air probably about 10 minutes after the game ends. We'll look forward to seeing everybody there. Whether you're watching live or in a replay, it's a Saturday night. I think we're going to have a big turnout. I think we're going to have a good conversation. I think it's going to be a fun and exciting game to watch, and it's going to be even more fun and exciting to talk about it with all of you guys after the game. So thank you for coming. Thank you for contributing. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. It's been a great time, and we will see you in the next one. Peace out.
To Hoffman, Monahan parked in front. Dr. Caulfield fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.